Welcome back to the cityCURRENT Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good in our community. And we love having our cityCURRENT partners come on, sharing their expertise. In this case, we're going to be diving into franchises, connecting you and matching you with the perfect franchise opportunity to make you a business owner. We're here with the owner of FranNet of Tennessee, Dan Aronoff. And Dan, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So you are a part of cityCURRENT, a partner. So thank you for all you do to help us power the good. Let's start with a little bit of your backstory, though, in terms of how you got into the franchise business. And then we'll talk all about what you do and how you do it and make the magic happen. But give us a little bit of your background.
Okay. Well, my background was basically corporate America. I worked with Exxon, Kraft Foods, a biotech company called Kendall International, all in human resources. That's what I got my graduate degree in, and did that for about 15 years. Then worked in the family business for a few years, which is a promotional products company, and just wanted to do something completely on my own. Really happenstance was talking to a buddy of mine that I went to graduate school with, his friend in the FranNet territory in Minnesota. We got to talking, and long story short, I ended up calling the CEO. Tennessee was available, and I bought the franchise for FranNet in Tennessee.
And so you have Memphis and Nashville, the whole state. And talk about what FranNet does, because on your end, you're an advisor, a consultant, but it's so much more. You're a matchmaker. Give us a little bit of just, what FranNet does.
Yeah, well, great question. FranNet's been around actually for over 30 years. So we've got consultants all over the country. And like I mentioned before, I am a franchisee. So I own a franchise of a franchise consulting business. And you also use the right word. Very simply, think of me as a franchise matchmaker. So I work with people who want to find out if business ownership is right for them, and if so, what franchise would be the best fit. And basically how we do that is we take people through a methodical process. We've got assessment tools and questionnaires. Based on that information, I then match them up with franchises to research and guide them through the due diligence process. And best of all, the service is at no cost to them because I get paid a commission by the franchise company when I make a placement. So it's kind of like an executive recruiter in the franchise space.
Yeah, and I think that makes it really easy on your end because you're trying to do what's best on both sides and really be that matchmaker. How many franchise opportunities are there? Like, I think if people are thinking, franchise, you kind of gravitate toward maybe a restaurant, fast food chain, but it's so much more than that. How many different options are there?
Well, there are lots. I mean, good grief. There's probably close to 3,500 plus franchises out there. We work with a select group, around 250 to 300. These are franchises that FranNet has personally vetted. So we're looking for high standards, quality. You mentioned food, and that's what most people think of when they think of franchising. We don't work with a lot of food concepts, and not to say that there's anything wrong with a food franchise. In most cases, our clients are looking for businesses in technology, B2B, health and wellness, fitness, education, senior care. So that tends to where we gravitate. And most of the franchises that we work with typically have a total investment ranging anywhere from 75 to 300,000. So, and we would fit that into what we would call a fairly affordable cost option for most folks.
Yeah, because you're looking at, for instance, like a restaurant where you've got the infrastructure, the actual building and all the equipment, like you're all in at a much higher cost. That's very reasonable when you talk about stepping in and having the possibility of owning your own business and owning your own future. And ultimately that's what this is it's freedom, independence, owning your own future. I just saw today even a newsletter that you sent out where you kind of paint the picture of different ones and opportunities to learn more. And one of them was around kind of the work from home space and leveraging that. Give us an idea of just some of the maybe the newer franchises that are out there and those opportunities that are kind of the trends moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, we don't tend to focus on a lot of fatty businesses, so to speak. A lot of the franchises that we work with are tried and true. They're in pretty stable, resilient spaces. Not to say that we're not working with young, emerging growth franchises that are innovative, but I would say like anything in the home improvement sector, the e-blast that you just saw, I mean, that sector is just booming. They've had banner years. Personal services like senior care, education. I mean, those are resilient businesses. Doesn't matter whether it's an up economy or a down economy, there's always going to be a demand for this service. Pet related franchises, so I wouldn't say that it's anything all that extraordinary, but it's services that are always going to be in demand.
Yeah, the tried and true for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned the assessments on the front end. When you are sitting down and really looking at finding the best match, and that's obviously for the passion and the purpose, but it's also looking at where the finances are and some of those elements. Walk us through the questions you like to ask, some of the main things that you're looking for to start figuring out the best match.
It's a great question. And it always starts off with the why. What is prompting the individual to say, hey, maybe owning my own business is a better option than, say, staying in corporate America? So I always start with that. I want to understand what's going on in their life. For some people, maybe they're just jaded with corporate America and they want to chart their own course, or they've been a road warrior and their work-life balance has been compromised. Or they're just not satisfied with their corporate job. It's really all about understanding their why, which oftentimes boils down to control, autonomy, wanting to build something. They may not necessarily be dissatisfied with their job. Maybe they want to create another stream of income and build wealth. And so, that then would say, hey, I'll match you up with opportunities that are well designed for semi-absentee ownership. And then, of course, I get the folks that have retired that love the game of business and they want to build something and maybe even pass it on to their kids as a legacy business. So we're taking the assessment, we're getting a firm understanding of their values, their interests, trying to leverage their skill sets, and looking at their financial wherewithal and comfort zone, and then begin to discuss franchise models that hopefully can help them achieve their personal, professional, and financial goals.
I like that you mentioned too, building something and then being able to pass it to the son, the daughter, the children, kind of looking at it from a legacy standpoint. I'm curious when it comes into someone saying, okay, well, I've got a job that I enjoy right now, a career, but I do want to start building over here. How much of it is, okay, you've got to quit your full-time job to actually go all in versus some that you can say, well, you can actually kind of, have two parallel tracks. And then as this one grows, you can then, pull yourself in this direction as an owner versus all in.
Yeah. So if somebody has a strategy of maybe creating an additional stream of income or thinking about doing something with their kids, I think the most important aspect is to have them, when they do their due diligence, really understand the time requirements. When we say semi-absentee, this can vary. It could be 10 hours, it could be 20 hours, and if you've got a full-time job, that's not easy, but there are folks that do it. And so it's just getting a clear understanding of what the time commitment is going to be. And also making sure that, if you want to get your kids involved, that the kids are buying into this. In other words, sometimes the parents have this idea that their kids want to do something entrepreneurial, or maybe even a spouse, but they haven't had those conversations. They haven't really talked about their goals, what their roles would be. So it's all about clear communications and having a good idea of what everybody's trying to achieve.
Good advice for sure. What's the typical time frame from someone reaching out saying, I'm interested, I want to start exploring these opportunities, you sitting down with them, going through the assessments, figuring out where the alignment is? What's a typical time frame? And I know it probably varies dramatically, but from I want to get involved to then, okay, let's go ahead and let's sign on the dotted line. And now you're a franchise owner and you're off and running. What does that timetable look like?
As far as my coaching and how much is involved, I would say, generally speaking, the investigation process for the prospect is going to be anywhere from 30 to 90 days. And some of that is going to depend on, if they've got a full-time job, obviously we've got to take that into consideration, and how many franchises they're investigating. In most cases, my clients are looking at 3, maybe 4 franchises where they're doing a deep dive and they're having weekly conversations with the franchisors, and then eventually actually speaking with current franchisees and learning from them. And then my role is guiding them through the due diligence process, connecting them with professional advisors like franchise attorneys, CPAs. So, I would say anything less than 30 days, I would be concerned that the individual hasn't spent enough time doing their due diligence. But some people, hey, they hone in on that one right opportunity and they're ready to go. If it's any more than 90 days, that individual might be stuck. There could be some fear, which is natural. And so it's all about helping them work through this and just make sure that, we're here to guide them.
What are some questions that you encourage the individuals to ask of the franchisor? So what are some things that you say, hey, when you're doing your due diligence, these are the things based on my experience that you might not think about, but you need to be asking and looking at?
Sure. I think it's important to get a clear understanding of the franchisor's background and experience, and to understand their direction, their vision, their succession. You got to take into consideration of, is their plan to exit in 5 years, and what does that mean for a franchisee? Certainly you want fit, and you want to hear from the franchisor, what is it going to take to be successful? What are the key success factors? Based on our conversations, do you feel that I fit the bill, that I have what it takes to be a successful franchisee? So you've got to have a real clear understanding of the role, and is this the right fit for me? And I think, a great question for the prospect to ask franchisees, number one question would be, if you had to do it over again, would you still buy this franchise?
Yeah. And I think those are things that, as you're exploring, it's always good to get, the insight, and as you're making the choice, you want to make the right choice, obviously, because it's a big investment and this becomes your future. What, you don't necessarily have to name names, but, give us a success story, or what's a success story on your end that you've had a chance to build and be a part of that puts a smile on your face.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So a client that I had about 10 years ago, it was a husband and wife team. She was a very successful executive in the insurance industry. Her husband was a stay-at-home dad. She wanted to get out of the rat race. They wanted to do something together. They wanted a community-driven business. We looked at a variety of different options. One of them that I threw at them, which I called kind of the wild card, was a business called Big Frog Custom T-shirts. Okay. Now, if you would have seen their initial reaction, it was priceless. And I actually was worried maybe I've compromised my credibility, because they were kind of thinking, what, hawking t-shirts? But this is a business where you're making custom t-shirts for sports teams, corporate events, things like that. A lot of community involvement, for churches. And that was exactly what they wanted. They wanted a fun business, a business that wasn't intense and a lot of stress. And lo and behold, it ended up being the one that they bought. And they're still at it and doing well. So, and there are a lot of stories, Jeremy, like that. I mean, most of the franchisees that I've placed have gotten into businesses that were never on their radar. And that's kind of the beauty of this whole process. As I tell anybody, go into this keeping an open mind, because what you think could be the best fit versus reality are often two totally different things.
And it also goes back to asking the right questions. And like you said, understanding that community engagement, involvement was actually a priority. Well, then you can steer them in the right direction to ultimately have that opportunity to be engaged and do what they love, and then obviously manifest that as a business. So I think that goes back to obviously your skill set too, of getting to what's the real purpose, what's driving this as the motivation.
Yeah.
Wrap that up on your end with where to go to obviously contact you. As I mentioned, you're putting out newsletters and all sorts of valuable information. So where can we go to access that, reach out to you, follow this conversation forward?
Excellent. Yeah, very simply go to www.FranNet.com. If you put in your zip code and it's a Tennessee zip code, it'll come directly to me, and voila, the process begins.
Nice. Well, Dan, thank you for all you do. Thank you for being a cityCURRENT partner and helping us power the good. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it too.